Hello, fourth grade. This is Mrs. Castick coming at you here to teach your next math lesson, which is 7-2, which is titled Exploring Fraction Multiplication Situations. So times where you would need to use fraction multiplication. Now, already I can tell you that this is not my favorite way to teach you guys, as this is the third time that I have tried recording this video. One thing I want to talk about before we start, or a couple things. The first is please remember that you can pause this video, go back and rewatch things, pause it to try to solve on your own, and then check your work as we work. Any of that is the one bonus of doing it this way, is that you can rewatch it or go back as many times as you need so that you better understand this. And the second thing is make sure you have your math workbook with you. Whenever you come to sit down to do a math lesson on Tuesdays and Thursdays, make sure you have that workbook with you so that you can practice the problems in there. Mrs. Smith and I are practicing the I do, we do, you do format as best we can in this situation. So this first one I'm going to do for you. And the second and third ones, obviously, I will be having us kind of do them together and working together. So the first thing I want to do is read to you this problem, and it says, the Social Studies Club wants to make paper mache globes. To make the paste, each club member will mix 3/4 cup white glue and 1/4 cup water. The club has 9 members. They have 1 quart of water. Is there enough water for everyone? So I'm going to go through and underline some things I think are important. The first being they need 1/4 cup of water to make their thing. They need 3/4 cup of glue. And this is for each club member. Okay, so that tells you right now how many club members there are. There are 9 members. Okay, there are 9 members. I think that's important. And it says they have 1 quart of water. Is there enough water for everyone? So once you get to the question, you should say to yourself, okay, obviously they're not asking me anything about the glue. So although I underlined it, I'm going to just cross that off for right now, because my guess is that they must know they have plenty of glue for everyone, and they're not sure yet if they have enough water. So we know we need 1/4 cup of water per member. So I'm going to take that 9 times 1/4. Okay, there we go. So last week when you worked on this with Mrs. Smith, she might have shown you 2 ways to do this, or a few different ways actually, and I'm going to go over a couple here real quick. One way you can do this is you can take your whole number and you take it times your numerator. Your denominator stays the same, just like when you're adding or subtracting. So 9 times 1 is 9, so I'm left with 9/4. Sometimes people put their whole number over 1. So they take 9 times 1 equals 9 and 1 times 4 equals 4, and that's their way of knowing. Okay, you can also draw a picture. So you could draw a picture and cut into fourths. I'm going to color in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9/4, because it was 9 times 1/4. That gives me 9/4, which is what I have for my answer there. But I should change this into a mixed number. And if I look at my picture, it's easy to do that. I have 2 holes and I have 1/4 left over. The other way I can do that is I look here and I say 4 goes into 9. How many times? It goes in there 2 times. And that takes away 8 and leaves me with 1/4 left over. So now I have to ask myself, okay, it takes 2 1/4 cups, because I was measuring with cups. If you see up here, the cup of water. Okay, but they're telling me they have 1 quart of water. Well, we talked about gallons and cups and pints and things like that quite a while ago. But maybe if you remember, there is 4 cups in a quart. Okay, so you have 4 cups in 1 quart. So I have to see here how many, or do I have enough? If I have 2 1/4 cups of water that I need and I have 4 cups, then yes, I have enough water. Okay, so what I'm going to have you guys do now is take out your workbooks and open up to page 232, please. All right, now that you are open up to page 232, you should see at the top of your page, there's a recipe that looks, or there is a recipe list that looks like this. And it says, Suma and her sister Puha are baking 12 blueberry wheat muffins for breakfast. The recipe list has the following ingredients. So there you go through it. You need 1 cup flour, half cup whole wheat flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, 3/4 cup blueberries, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1 egg, half cup skim milk, 2/3 cup honey, 1/4 cup cooking oil, and 3/8 teaspoon cinnamon. So this information, while it won't be showing on my screen, you guys still have that information in front of you. So hopefully you can refer back to that, and I will refer back to it in my book as we go through the next questions together, okay? So what it says here is it says solve the number story. Use pictures or equations. Pictures or equations, so you can do it either way. If you're a visual person and you want to draw pictures, you can, or you can just simply write out the problems if you'd like to do it that way to find your answers. So the sisters want to triple this recipe, and to triple means that they want to do it times 3. So I'm going to write that little note up here, and I'm going to do times 3 because they want to triple it. Okay. So how many teaspoons of baking powder do they need now? Well, if we refer up to our recipe, in the baking powder, they needed 2 teaspoons in one batch. So if they want to triple it, we need to take that times 3. So this doesn't even involve fractions. This is just a simple basic multiplication problem. So if they need 2 teaspoons in one recipe and they take that times 3, they would need 6 teaspoons in the new recipe. So then we're going to look at the second one, which reads, how many teaspoons of salt do they need? Okay. How many teaspoons of salt do they need? Well, salt, let me see here. They needed 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And we're going to take that times 3 again. So remember, when you are multiplying a whole number times a fraction, you just take that whole number times your numerator, and 3 times 1 is 3, and my denominator stays the same. So they need 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So now I'm going to scroll down. We're going to look at the next problem. Alrighty, so the next step is it says how many cups of whole wheat flour do they need now? So be careful on this one because there's 2 areas. He needs 1 cup of white flour and a half cup of whole wheat flour. So he needs a half cup, oops. Doesn't want to let me write here. He needs a half cup of whole wheat flour. And we need to triple that again. Okay. So again, if you want to draw this out with pictures, I'll do that over here. So I have a half cup. So I'm going to draw a half, and I'm going to color in 3 of them. So I need 3 halves. So I'm going to color in 1 half, 2 halves, and 3 halves. So that tells me my answer is 3 halves, or I have 1 whole and a half here, which is how I would normally write this. So I would need 1 and 1/2 cups whole wheat flour if I wanted to triple it. And then it says, between what 2 whole numbers does your answer to problem 1C lie? So 1 1/2. What 2 whole numbers is 1 1/2 between? So I have a mixed number there, which is a whole number and a fraction. So obviously it's between 1, and then the next whole number, if I was going to count up, would be 2. It's between 1 and 2, because if I had a number line, 1 would be here, 2 would be here, and 1 1/2 would be there. So it lies between 1 and 2. So now I'm just going to do a quick intro into the next set of problems on page 233. These are actually problems I'm going to have you do on your own, but I want to look at the intro here quick so that you are on the right track. So on page 232, we tripled the recipe. they wanted to make 3 times more than what the initial recipe called for. And the initial recipe, if you remember, if you look on page 232, makes 12 cupcakes, okay? So what they're saying on this problem is it says solve the number story, use pictures or equations, just like the last page that we did, to show how to find your answers. So again, it says Suma and Puha decided to make 48 muffins instead of 12 now. So this is our important information that I just kind of want to give you a little preview on before I let you loose to try this on your own. So they are making 48 muffins instead of 12. So this is where you have to think to yourself, okay, if 12 muffins was the original recipe, how many times would I have to make that recipe in order to get 48 muffins? So I have to say 12 times what would give me 48, okay? And this is a basic 12's multiplication problem. You could also do 48 divided by 12, but 12 times what would get me to 48? So how many times would I need to make this recipe in order to end up with 48 muffins? And that answer would be 12, 24, 36, 48. So I would need to do it 4 times. So when you are solving A, B, C, and D on number 2 on page 233, I want you to remember that you are taking it times 4 this time, not times 3, okay? So the questions that they ask you, you are quadrupling the recipe, not tripling it this time. So hopefully you can take what we did in the first set and use that to help you solve number 2. That will be good practice for you today. This is, again, just an extension on what Mrs. Smith taught you. So hopefully you see that multiplying fractions and whole numbers isn't as tricky as you might have thought it would be initially. And this is a very real life situation where you would use this with baking and cooking and things like this. Your parents have probably, parents or grandparents have done this on a very regular basis when they're baking. If they double the recipe, they have to take everything times 2. Or if they triple it or quadruple it, like Suma and Puha are going to do. So again, like always, if you guys have any questions on anything that we've taught today or that we've gone through today, you can always go back and look, or you can email or call Mrs. Smith or myself to help you with that. Hopefully this is a good aid for you when you are working on number 2 and when you continue to work on this in Prodigy and other areas. Thanks so much for being here. We miss you guys lots. Have a great day.